How big is a pocket? I ask because some games say they're pocket sized or fit in your pocket, but there isn't a standard size pocket, right? So here's the deal. If the components of a game can fairly comfortably fit into one of these standard size Ultra Pro deck boxes, I'm going to count it as pocket sized. I do have one game on this list though that I don't own to check, so we'll see. But anyway, I'm Rob from JestaThaRogue.com, and these are the top 10 board games that can fit in your pocket.
Number 10.
Starting with the game you can play inside and outside, comes in a bag and is a lot of fun. In Push It, players take turns flicking their pucks to be closest to the jack placed in the middle of the table, and once everyone has done this with both of their pucks, the closest player gets 1 point, and 2 points if both their pucks happen to be closer than the other players. An important rule, especially if you're playing in somewhere busy like a restaurant or pub, is if you knock the jack off the table, you lose and everybody else gains 2 points. Another very important and very serious rule is that cheek lifting is allowed, but bum shuffling and chair moving is not. Score a number of points or play to have the most points after a number of rounds to win. I like sports style dexterity games and I get very competitive. I want every flick to be absolutely perfect. And of course, they are not. The downside of course is that if the table is too dirty, stained, heavily varnished, has a tablecloth or any other issues, or if an outdoor table is one of those with wooden slats, this game is not getting off the ground. But with just 9 discs, this will easily fit in most pockets. It does come with a bag, so you don't have to carry them loose if you don't want to. Rounds last less than a minute, so you can finish the game when the food arrives, or when the pub closes, or when Dave finally turns up. Dave, always late.
Number 9.
Okay, let's head over to Zimbabwe for a damn good time. In Kariba, which translates to where the waters have been trapped, players will play one of more of their cute animal cards to its matching number around the watering hole. Then if there are 3 or more animals in that stack, they take all the cards in the next lowest numbered animal face down to their score pile and then draw a card. The mouse is valued 1 and can only capture the value 8 element, keeping that circle of captures going. When the draw pile is empty and one player is out of cards, the player with the most captured cards wins. Viewers of this channel know I like cute games, and this is as cute can be. But it's also tactical. You want to put cards in so you can capture others, but putting a third card into a stack makes that stack more valuable for somebody else to capture. When writing this, I did wonder if the pieces of the watering hole would fit in a deck box alongside 64 stick of gum cards. But I recently bought it and it comes in this tiny box, so we're okay. Games take about 15 minutes depending on the slowest player at the table, which as we all know is Dave. And while it doesn't fit my personal, very strict definition of what a filler is, the games are short enough that you can get quite a few in before the end of the night.
Number 8.
Sticking with a light theme, we have another cute card game and more. In Digit, aka Pick It, aka Sticks with an X, players will take turns moving one stick to hopefully match a pattern on a card in their hand so they can discard it. If they can't match one in their own hand, but it happens to match one in an opponent's hand, they get to discard it out of turn. If no one discards a card, the active player draws one. And their player to empty their hand first wins. Now I do like this game, it is good fun, but there are quite a few players who feel this is all luck of the draw. And to be fair, most of the time if you can't discard a card, it's because you can't due to the current layout of the sticks. It's nothing to do with your skill. But it 100% fits in an Ultra Pro deck box. See? There's not really much else to say, and it's probably the least interesting game on this list, but it's done in about 20 minutes and it's a lot of fun, so there. I did a how to play video for this about 6 years ago, so there's that.
Number 7.
Time for the heaviest game on this list. I mean, we're nowhere near Vital Lacerda territory, but still. Everyone back on the plane, we're headed to the greatest country in the world, Japan. Honshu is the large middle island that makes up Japan, but is also a trick-taking game in a way where players add a map card numbered 1 to 60 to a trick. Then from the highest card played to the lowest, players draft one of the played cards into a trick to add to their map, adding resource cubes if there is space for one on the card. After 12 cards have been played, you score points for forests, your largest city, for delivering the correct colour cubes to a factory, and for having adjacent lakes, as well as points for your personal gold card, and the most points wins. It's a very fun game and the closest thing I have to a Euro on this list. Playing a card into a trick to determine turn order for you to take a card from that trick is really interesting. It would make a good step up for groups that play games like King Domino. There are 8 gold cards in the game and you get one at random in secret, giving you a different way to score points, and it would change the value of different cards for different players, which I find interesting too. It's not without its downsides. You have to place new cards on or under your previous cards and they slide around all over the place, and it's a table hog, which for this list, assuming we're in a pub, restaurant or similar, is a bit of a problem. At a whopping 30 minutes, it is the joint longest game on this list and far from a filler in my eyes. Also, with 84 cards and 40 cubes, will it fit in this deck box? Let's just say yes and move on.
Number 6.
Put your passports away, no more exotic trips on this list, instead we're heading to the big top. In Scout, which is in all caps for some reason, the start player will play a set or run of cards from their hand onto the table. The next player will either play by playing a set or run, but only if it's higher than the cards on the table. It's higher if it has more cards or has a set of the same quantity of cards but with a higher value. Also, the set beats any run as long as it has the same number of cards or more. It gets easy after a couple of rounds. If a higher set is played, the player takes the cards they beat into a face-down score pile, so only one set of cards is on the table at any one time. Instead of playing, they can scout by taking a card on either end of the set of cards in play and placing it either way up anywhere in their hand. The owner of the set on the table takes a point token for this. The important thing is that your hand of cards must stay in the same order they were dealt to you, so cards played must already be adjacent in your hand of cards to be able to play them. Also, once per round, a player can scout and play in the same turn. When a player empties their hand, each player gains a point for every card captured, plus for point tokens earned, and lose a point for each card in their hand. Play number of rounds equal to the player count, and the most points wins. While it's good to have a full game so everybody gets a turn going first, you could just play till Dave shows up and see who's got the most points wins. While I find it hard to explain, and I always need a reminder on what hand beats what every game, it is fairly light and straightforward, but the tactical play required to make the right choices to play and or scout is really important. So it's a good game. When I was planning this list, I thought 45 cards will easily fit in an Ultra Pro deck box. I just forgot about the 58 points tokens. Oops. But it's from Oink Games and comes in an Oink Games size box, so I think I'm covered.
Number 5.
Okay, well, call me a liar anyway. Get the passports out. We're off to Greece, technically. In Dodekka, meaning 12, players will either turn over a card from a deck one at a time to the end of a row with cards numbered 1 to 4 in 5 suits, or take the card closest to the deck. If a player makes the total of all cards in the row go over 12, they take all the cards in the row. When the last card from the deck is played, the game ends and players score. Players sort their cards by suit. They pick one suit and add up all the values on those cards as positive points. Each card they collected in other suits is worth -1 point each, and the player with the most points wins. This is a very fun and tense game. You don't want to take too many cards, especially if they're of different suits, and you're constantly viewing the game state to see if it's worth pushing your luck, or just taking the safe option of taking a card. Sometimes though, the values in the row are worth it. You can bust, take all the cards and have a net positive number of points. So it's one of those simple games with difficult choices, and a bit of luck wouldn't go amiss. This has been reprinted as DAO, so dig out the passport again, we're taking a surprise trip to China. But this time with better looking cards in a smaller box. I'll pick this up on my next trip to Essen. I do love those Amigo small box games, and it is only 60 cards, so will definitely fit in an Ultra Pro deck box. Now you're safe to put your passports away. Yes.
Number 4.
So now we start a run of 3 games that all come in that Amigo sized box, so you can relax on the pocket front. We start with open drafting and pattern building. In Game of Trains, players have some random train cards numbered 1 to 84 in descending order behind a locomotive card. On a player's turn, they either draw a card and replace one of their train cards, placing the replaced card in the middle of the table face up. Or they take one of the cards in the middle, activate its ability and discard it. These abilities let you swap and move cards around on your train, or make everyone discard a certain card from their train and replace it in that space with a blind draw from the top of the deck. And as soon as a player has all their train cards in ascending order from left to right, they win. Now there is a bit of luck here with fortuitous card drawing and abilities coming available to you as and when you need them, but you still need to play correctly. You also need to keep an eye out on your opponents, not just to see how they're doing, but to see if a card you're going to discard is going to give them an ability that they could use to help them. One of those abilities is a padlock that protects cards in one of those spaces that can be discarded. So if they happen to have the one value card in that prime left-hand spot, you don't want to be the one to give them a padlock so they can lock it in place. It's good fun, 20 minutes long, and one of those deceptively challenging games that seems to be a theme of this list.
Number 3.
From pattern building and open drafting to hand management and open drafting. In Recycle, or R-Eco if you speak anything other than Dutch, players are separating recycling trash at recycling plants for fun and profit. A player has a hand of trash cards, and on their turn they play one or more of a single type of trash card from the relevant factory and then take all cards in that factory's waste pile below it into their hand. If the value of trash in the factory is 3 or less, put that many cards from the factory's waste pile from the deck. If it's 4 or more, the player takes the top card from that factory as points. Then the player discards down to 5 cards. Discarded cards are kept in front of the player face down. When all reward cards from one facility have been taken, the game ends at the end of that turn. If a player only has one card from a factory, they discard it. The rest are worth their value. If a player hasn't discarded any cards in front of themselves face down, they score 1 point for each player that has, and the player with the most points wins. There are a few things to look at here. You don't ever want to discard cards if you can help it, so you need to manage the number of cards you play and where versus the number you'll pick up. The points on the factory cards start at 0 but then go 1, 2, 3, 3 again, -2, 4 and 5. So the 0 and -2 are bad and the rest are good. But you need to have 2 cards from a factory to score them, so getting the 0 is okay, but even better if it means that you'll score a 4 or 5 that you pick up later on. Getting the -2 is fine as well, as long as it's the only card you pick up from that factory, so you discard it before scoring. It's quite tense and unforgiving sometimes, especially when you have to discard a card because you just can't help it. You can't quite get that second factory card, so you can score the one you've got. It says it runs at 30 minutes, but it's usually a little quicker, and it comes in the little box as well, so no problem for the old pocket.
Number 2.
Now, we've covered some really good games on this list, I think, and games that I obviously really enjoy playing, but the top 2 on this list are far more obvious, far more better known choices. In No Thanks, there is a deck of cards numbered 3 to 39. 9 are removed at random without looking, and the rest are stacked on the table, and the top one is flipped face up. Players get 7 to 11 tokens depending on the player count. On a player's turn, they either play one of their chips on the face up card to skip picking it up and play goes to the next player, or they take the card and any chips on it, keep it face up in front of them, turn over the next card and go again. When all the cards have been taken, the game ends and players score. Runs of 2 or more cards only count as the lowest value in each run. Each chip is worth -1 point, and the player with the fewest points is the winner. Again, very simple with a few things to look for. You obviously don't want to take any cards, but you can't skip them all because you'll run out of chips, so you have to time when you're going to take the card and just take the hit. You could take a card you might need with a few chips on it, but with 9 random cards removed from the game, you never know if the card in between those 2, linking them together, will let you have a run because you don't know if that card's in the game. So another quick, fun, tense game on this list. BGG says 20 minutes, but usually runs quicker than that. Dave won't be waiting long.
And now, number 1.
This is the most obvious pick on this list, and especially if you follow the channel, it's also the only language independent game on this list. In Love Letter, players each have 1 card in hand from a 16 card deck, and on their turn will draw a card and play one of their 2 cards face up to activate the ability. These abilities let you draw and discard cards, exchange cards with other players, look at their hands, and most importantly, try and knock them out around in various ways. The final player left in the round gets a point called a token of affection, or if all the cards run out of the deck, whichever player's holding the highest value card in their hand will win the point. Play first to a predetermined number of points to see who's the winner, or just play to see who's got the most points when Dave finally turns up. The different role cards make the game fun, and each has its use when played, and the higher value cards are good to have in hand later in the game. I like the Batman version best, as Batman in this game, who replaces the guard in the original, scores a bonus point if he KOs a villain from the hand, which is a fun addition. I like the premium edition too, and it takes the player count from 4 to 8, but they are tarot sized cards. There's twice as many cards. They do not fit in the pocket very well. So the quick play time, the small footprint makes this the number 1 game to fit in your pocket on my list. What do you think of this list? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what your favourite game is that would fit in your pocket, especially if it's not on this list, so I can give it a go. Remember to like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff, and you can follow me on Twitter, Insta, Twitch and YouTube at JestaThaRogue. What's Twitter? And find the blog at JestaThaRogue.com. I've been Rob, aka JestaThaRogue. I'll see you soon.